Okay, boys, here we go for another quick lesson. So I'm sitting here at our kitchen table with my son's dinosaurs in the background. This is going to be a really interesting lesson. This was a amazing deepening of something that I've heard a number of times and yet never really seen in action. Right, so I've been able to leverage this piece of knowledge, but now that I can fully understand it, all through a gift given to me by my 3-year-old son, Hunter. So I wanted to pass this one on. The big thing that separates us from every other animal on this planet is the ability to language. Now, other animals have the ability to communicate. The difference between the ability to communicate and language is that language is a very, very effective tool. It's very, very flexible. You can take a word that means one thing, and through coordination of action, through the changing of that understanding, we can change it to something else very quickly. The example that I always use is a pen or a pencil. So if I want to write a note and you're sitting there with a pen, if I had a notebook in my hand and I said, I need to write a note, can I borrow your pen? You hand me the pen. So we were able to coordinate action around using that writing implement, a pen, very easily based on our shared background of experience. If I then stabbed you in the chest with a pen and ran out and there were witnesses in the room and the police came in and said, what weapon did Larry use? You would be able to say a pen. So a pen turned from a writing implement to a weapon. We were able to coordinate action around using it as a writing implement, as well as being able to coordinate action with the police around it being a weapon. Now, if I asked you if I could borrow a kalamu, unless you spoke Swahili, you'd have no idea what I was talking about. Kalamu is Swahili for pen. And so even that simple thing of now creating that shared background of history around Kalamu, someone that's seen this video, if I was to bring up Kalamu in a future video, you would know exactly what I'm talking about. And that's what's so amazing about language. In less than a minute, we've been able to make the words pen, weapon, Kalamu all mean the same thing, and we've been able to coordinate action around those things, all based on having a shared or similar background of experience. So our ability to language is our greatest tool for being able to coordinate action with others. And this is something that we have to do on a daily basis just to survive, much less to thrive, right? That ability to coordinate action with others is one of our greatest needs for survival, as well as our ability to coordinate action with others is what ultimately determines our success. The better and more effective we are at coordination of action, the more success we can have in life. And language is our most effective tool for that coordination of action. Now, that's just the basic foundations of it. And in your life, I would imagine most of the time that you are in conflict, it's because of some sort of miscommunication, some sort of mix-up with the use of language, not having that same or similar background of experience. And it is often through language that we can solve our conflicts, if it isn't going to be physical. Now, that has a nice solid foundation of understanding for you around language. But what I want to talk about, and why I'm sitting at this kitchen table with my kids' toys in the background, is something even different. So one of the things that I've been taught a number of times is that if we don't have a word for something, it can't exist in our world, and it limits our ability to take certain actions, right? So our ability to have things be in our world depends on having language for that particular thing or that particular skill or that particular piece of knowledge. And if we don't have the words and it doesn't exist in our world, then we can't take action around it. And that makes sense on a fundamental level. And I remember one of the stories that I heard around this was that it was taken for granted that every society, every culture had the ability to count, right? They had the concept of 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, there's all sorts of different words for that because the backgrounds of experience were different, but ultimately the concept of counting was part of every culture until they found this tribe in the Amazon that didn't have words for counting, right? They had no word for 1, for 2, to 3, or 4. Now, that seems crazy to begin with, but the effects of that are what are even more amazing. So because they didn't have the concepts of 1, 2, 3, or 4, they also didn't have the concepts of possession, right? You can't have possession if you can't keep track of that which you possess. And in order to keep track of that which you possess, you have to be able to count, right? You have to be able to distinguish, I have 2 and you have 3. And so here's this culture that because of not having words for counting 1, 2, 3, 4, they didn't have a concept of possession. Everything belonged to everyone. And therefore, they didn't have conflict. They didn't have fights. And so something as simple as being able to have a word for 1, 2, and 3, and 4, right? Numbers, the ability to count, went all the way through possession into the action of conflict and fighting over possessions. So again, that made it, for at least for me, a deeper understanding of one, the power of words, right? Having words, having things exist in our life, as well as the actions that those words enable us to do. But it also showed the limitations, right? What happens, what limitations do we have when we don't have words for something? So that was, again, very theoretical. I got it deep in my understanding, but it wasn't until last week when I really saw how physical capability, physical coordination, having that wasn't enough to complete a simple task. What was required was a word. So I'm sitting here at the breakfast table with my 2 boys. I've got a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. Colton is the older, Hunter's the younger. So Hunter, 3 years old, up until this point, had no word for trash can, right? So garbage, trash can, he didn't have that word yet. That wasn't part of his vocabulary. It wasn't part of his world. So that seems pretty simple, right? Okay, he's learning, he's expanding his vocabulary. Up until this point, I had asked him to throw things away, right? Hunter, throw this away. Put it in the garbage. Put it in the trash can. No action, no movement. And then this other morning, so less than 5 days ago, I asked Hunter, take your napkin and throw it in the garbage. And he got out of his chair, he walked over to where the garbage was, he opened the cabinet, and he put the napkin in the garbage can. Now, on the surface, that seems really simple. But what's amazing is, up until this point, he had the physical ability to hold a napkin. He had the physical ability to open the cabinet. He had the physical ability to put that napkin in the garbage can, right? So all of that ability was in his grasp. But because he didn't have a word for trash can, and trash can didn't exist, or garbage didn't exist in his world, he wasn't able to leverage his physical ability and coordinate action to put a napkin into the trash can. But something clicked. At some point, trash can, garbage, became real in his world because he had that language, which all of a sudden enabled him to harness the power he already had, the physical power and coordination he already had, to take effective action and put the garbage in the garbage can. Now, you may be thinking, Larry, you're making a huge deal out of a 3-year-old being able to put the garbage away. But when you look at it on the fundamental levels of language and coordination of action, it really expresses the truth that if we don't have a word for something, we can't take effective action, even if we have the power to do so, right? I may have the power to earn more money, but if I don't have the right language and the right words to be able to coordinate action with my prospects, with my employees, there's no way that I can produce more revenue. And so where in your life are you missing language? Where in your life do you have ineffective distinctions, ineffective words that limit your ability to harness the power you already have. And you can find that by saying, where are you stuck? Wherever you are stuck, I guarantee you're stuck because you need to learn something. There's some sort of knowledge gap, and ultimately that knowledge gap is always filled by words, by language. And so using this understanding, right? Pay attention to your world. If you have kids, pay attention to your kids and understand that a lot of times the limitations that we face in our world are merely limitations in language, in having effective words, effective distinctions to take effective action. So with that, I give you that little treat given to me by my beautiful little son, Hunter, all about throwing a napkin away in the garbage. And just that ability to stay present to what's going on and look at it at a deeper level is often some of the best lessons. So thank you for that. And if there's anything we could do for you to increase your language around leadership, around management, around coordination of action with others, just let us know. We'd love to serve you. This is Larry Yatch. I can't wait to see you next time. Bye.